happy smiling faces here. I think I'm better with my glasses on. I'm going to try and make this as painless as possible for you. I'm not a speaker, I'm actually a performer rather than a speaker, and I'd rather perform than speak. However, here I am. So this is called My History of Jazz in Australia, but it covers more than Australia. It covers, well, practically all the world. So you have to bear with me because I'm going to step outside of Australia. So let's see, I was born in Melbourne. It's a seaside town in Victoria, and my parents had a band. I was born into a musical family. My mother was a pianist, my father was a saxophone player, and my brother was a drummer. And, you know, generally, my teenage years, or no, before the teenage years, you know, I used to play cricket in the summer, and we'd go swimming in the summer, play football in the winter. It was just a marvellous youth that I had in a sort of what you'd probably call an innocent world today. But the musical family thing happened, and I was, you know, at one time or other I had to become a musician, but there was never a choice for me. They never said, would you like to play the saxophone or the piano? It was always the trumpet. Anyway, before that, when I was, you know, quite young, probably about 8 or 9, the war years was on, and Mum and Dad had this band that played in dances, but there was an army camp near Frankston in Melbourne, an American army camp, and they used to travel there 4 nights a week, 4 or 5 nights a week, just to play for dances. And me, as a young boy of 8, 9, 10, I used to go with them, but I couldn't stand the late nights, so I'd end up asleep behind the piano with an overcoat on me, you know, and my head against the piano. It was belted into me, you know. And so by the time of age 11, I started taking trumpet lessons. And my first teacher was a guy called Cecil Seaman, and my second teacher was Alan Hill, and both of these guys had spent time playing in my mother's band, so that's how we got to know them. Well, Alan Hill, and he was a very fine trumpet player, and in fact I've seen him quite a few times. He died just recently, but I did see him a few times in later years, and he was really proud of me because he claimed he was my teacher, which he was in a way. Anyway, the idea was for me to join a brass band to help me, you know, along. So I joined the Chelsea City Band. This is all in Melbourne, of course, you understand that, and probably you don't know any of these suburbs. And Morty Alec. Anyone ever heard of Morty Alec? No, it's a crazy name, isn't it? And the Morty Alec Band. This was probably about 1946. It wasn't long after the war ended, and the Chelsea Band were wearing band uniforms of surplus Air Force uniforms, you know, navy blue. So here's me with this surplus Air Force uniform made for a 18 or 20-year-old, and I'm 12. So there's paper in the hat, and you know, and Mum took the pants up, and then it must have looked absolutely ridiculous, you know. Because anyway, so I did my lessons, I did my practice, and at about age 14, I used to sit in with my mother's band, and at that time, Graham Bell had a hit record out. This was, I don't know what, this 1947, I suppose. And the song was South, and it was on all the radio programs. Graham was a very famous man. Yeah, I mean, he still is, but in those days he was a super famous. And I used to sit in and play South with the family band. And Len was on drums, my brother Len. So that was my big introduction into the music of dance music or show business, if you want to call it that. So a little while later, Len started his own band. We were all absolutely enthralled by jazz. In fact, when Len came home one day with a Muggsy Spaniel record, and he played it, and we all went crazy, you know, wow, what's that? And that was the end. I never looked forward. So Len had this band called the South City Stompers, because it was Melbourne. And we was a 7-piece band, and we started playing in Melbourne for dances, and they were called 50-50 dances. Now, I don't know, I think they probably had them in Sydney. Did they? Yeah. And 50-50 meant that one set, a set or a bracket they call it, was 3 songs, and there'd be a quick step, a slow foxtrot, and a fixed foxtrot or a quick step again. Then there'd be a break, and there'd be an old-time dance. So 50-50 means half modern, as they called it, modern, and half old-time. And the old-time consisted of things like the Pride of Erin, the Charmaine, Tangoette. In Sydney it was called the La Bomba. So we had to learn all those songs. You couldn't get a gig unless you could play all the old-time things, like, and the barn dance. And it was actually very good for us. We learnt so many songs. But the barn dance was a nice bouncy tempo, and there was a lot of Louis Armstrong records at that time were around about that tempo, so we got to play all the good Louis Armstrong songs in the barn dance. And in the old-time dances, the dance hall was a big, well, you know, it looked like a town hall with chairs all around the edges, and the girls would sit in the chairs and wait for the guys to come up and ask for the dance. So the word wallflower comes from that, where all the girls were up dancing except maybe 1 or 2 that didn't get asked, and they were called wallflowers. So one night we were doing a gig, and the musicians' union representative came in and said, "You guys aren't in the union, you know, you can't be here, you can't be playing this gig." And we said, "What union, you know?" Anyhow, what developed was that we had to join the union. To do that, we had to audition, and none of us could read. At that time, we couldn't read at all. So we went to the musicians' union office, set up the band, and the little panel of people sat there and they'd say, "Oh, play the Pride of Erin." So we'd play the Pride of Erin and play a quick step, play a Charleston, and we played all, you know, we could do all that. So, but that's how we got into the union. We had to audition to get in. Without it, we didn't have to read anything, but we had to prove that we could handle the situation. So we were fully fledged union members. 1948, we started at the Mentone Lifesaving Club, which became quite an institution. On Sunday afternoons, Frank Johnson had a band in Elwood called the Maison Deluxe, and Frank's band was here, and it was packed every Sunday. And then straight after that, we'd all race down to the Mentone Lifesaving Club with Len's band. And in those days, it was somehow or other the Maison had some exemption, but dancing in Melbourne on a Sunday was absolutely taboo. But being a life-saving club, they allowed it. So we used to work there like 8 till 10:30, because, and then sometimes we'd also run a midnight till dawn dance if there was a public holiday on the Monday. We'd start a dance at midnight on the Monday. People, you know, swarming to the place, swarming. Midnight till 4 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, the Mentone Lifesaving gig, we used to get 10 shillings, which is $1. So that goes a long way today. Len changed the name of his band from the South City Stompers to Len Barnard's famous jazz band. And it became quite well known. We did dances and concerts, jazz conventions, and we made our first record on my 16th birthday. It was the 24th of November, 1948. No, 49. Clarinet, marmalade, and always Creole trombone. Ever come across those records? Don't listen. Don't listen. So, however. So in 1952, I became a national serviceman. I was 18, and we were all called up for national service. And I hated it, really hated it. But I learned how to march and how to drill, and I was what they call the number 3 on the 25-pounder gun, big gun, you know. And the number 3 is the guy that sat in the seat and looked through all the things and turned all the handles. That was me. And then when it was all set, I hit the trigger, which was a bang. Anyway. But I hated it, and I was so glad when it was over. In April of that year, Len's band picked me up at Puckapunyal, which was north of Melbourne by, I don't know how many, like 50 or 60 miles, maybe more. And we went to Wagga. We did a little tour of Wagga with the band. And on the Sunday in Wagga, someone told us about this band in Cootamundra. It was a Cootamundra jazz band. We had the Sunday off, so we hopped in the car and went down to Cootamundra. That's where I met John Costello, 1952. And we stayed friends with that band for years, and Cossie, of course, was a member of my band for a lot of years. Same year, I made some records under the name of the Alfay Street Stompers, Bob Barnard's Alfay Street Stompers, which was a pretty wild band. Warwick Dyer, legendary Warwick Dyer, Nick Pilates, Len Barnard, and me. So, all right, now we're up to 1954. Louis Armstrong arrived in Melbourne. They stayed for 5 days. They did 11 concerts. Can you imagine that? 11 concerts. The band was Louis, Barney Bigard, Trummy Young, Billy Kyle, Barrett Deems, who I missed, Arvell Shaw. That's right. And they did 2 shows, 6 and 8:30, and a matinee on a Wednesday. So they did 11 concerts, and I went to every one. That was fantastic. It's really fantastic. The stage door was set up in such a way that when you looked at the stage, the door opened this way, and the band members came out. And when they introduced Louis, he didn't come in, he just put his hand out with the trumpet in the hand, and the spotlight hit it, and the whole back wall was this huge big trumpet with the hand, and then Louis walked on, and everyone went crazy, you know. Fantastic. So, okay, 1955, Len Barnard's famous jazz band, we went on a national tour. We'd saved up, got a lot of money in the bank, and we took off to conquer Australia. Well, we did well in Victoria, and probably better known there. And then we got to New South Wales, and the bad roads, unmade roads mostly. And we got stuck in the mud a few times. And in one town, okay, I'll tell you what it was, called Warwick Nabil in Victoria. We were doing a concert there on the same night, or the same week, as the Fire Brigade ball, the annual Fire Brigade ball. So the whole town were against us, you know. They tore down all our posters. You know, the newspaper, the hall that we rented was castigated because they rented the hall to us, and our firemen are out there, you know, risking their lives, and you're going to a jazz concert. So the whole town, it's a terrible situation, because I think the country people in those days only went out once a week, so they wouldn't go out twice. So of course, we suffered from that. We had a Rio truck with a canvas backing. We put all the instruments and stuff in that to travel with, and a couple of cars. Now, one car, and an advanced man who had 3 weeks and booked halls and, you know, set up the publicity. Anyway, it didn't go very well. The Oldsmobile, my car, had a broken windscreen, and we parked it underneath, on the way to Sydney from here. There's a viaduct under the bridge. We parked it in there with a broken windscreen and left it there and headed for Brisbane, Stony Brook. And we thought, we'll run a big concert at the boxing stadium. So the stadium, the ring was in the middle. There was rows of people here and there, and we took up the fourth row. So at the end of the concert, the money that came in that they gave us didn't match up with the amount of people that were there. So in other words, the stadium people got at us. So we were really in trouble. The band broke up. Len's band broke up it was 1955, and Len stayed in Brisbane. I went back to Melbourne. When I got to Sydney, the Oldsmobile was still there, under the bridge. You know? So I was travelling with Peter Cleaver and Robin McCulloch. They were members of the band. Both played guitar, and I had a sheet of Perspex over the windscreen, and we headed off to Melbourne with absolutely no money. We got to Wangaratta, and we thought, okay, we're going to get out in the street and busk. 2 guitars and a trumpet. But fortunately, one of the guys met someone he knew and borrowed £5, which was enough to get us back to Sydney. So I didn't have to busk after all. So, okay, 1956, Louis Armstrong came back. This time he had Jack Lesberg on the bass and Joe Darensberg on the clarinet. Fantastic stuff. You know, up all night. In 1957, Ray Price invited me to join him in Sydney. So we started work at the Macquarie Hotel down at Woolloomooloo. We did 4 nights a week and Saturday afternoon. The band was Dick Hughes, Ray Price and me. And the place was packed every night. It was fantastic. And Ray, of course, was the leader of the Port Jackson Jazz Band. And in Sydney, around that time, the Port Jackson Dixieland Jazz Band was known as the Fort Dixon Jaxieland Fizz Bang. So, but we played at the Macquarie Hotel, which was right across the road from the wharves, as you probably all well know. So it was a sailors' hotel, and it was a pretty rough place. We worked in the lounge bar on the side. The public bar you wouldn't go in. The public bar on a Friday night, they had a raffle. The first prize was a girl. So, anyway, we did a lot of gigs all over town. We made some records. I was 24 years old and ready for anything. But a year later, I returned to Melbourne. I took a job at Brash's Music Store, and I worked in the band, what's called the Powerhouse Jazz Band. Powerhouse was a rowing club on the lake at Albert Park. And the band was Ken Jones, who was the leader, Stewie Spears, you all remember Stewie, or some of you do, Freddie Parks, Harry Price, Graham Coyle, Keith Cox, Alan Lee, and me. And we started there in 1958, and I left again in 1962, but the gig went on for another 4 years. So 1961, we recorded an album called The Naked Dance. It was Len's band, and it was pretty well just a wonderful record, and it still is, and it's still talked about. It's considered to be, some kind of a benchmark in jazz in Australia, and it is. It's a fabulous record. If you ever get a chance, it's called The Naked Dance by the Len Barnard Band. 1962, Graham Bell called me back to Sydney. So I went back and joined Graham and the All Stars, we called it. And we had a job at the Coal Joy Club. Coal Joy Club was right opposite the Chevron Hotel at Potts Point. It had another name too, and I can't remember what it was now. Anyway, it was, and I wish I could remember now. What was it? Okay, but we did Bandstand, all the TV shows. Graham was warming up now to a hot spot. Johnny O'Keefe's 6 o'clock rock, the Graham Kennedy show. We went down to Melbourne for that. And then Graham got a weekly television show on Channel 7. So for half an hour, I've forgotten what night it was, we would appear on television in this fabulous-looking club with people sitting there with drinks and all that, which was absolutely illegal. And a lot of people would call up channels saying, "Where is that club?" And it wasn't. It was a television set. But we had guest artists. It was the regular band, and with guest artists like Aidan Wansborough and Don Burrows and the ones I mean. So that ran for quite a while, and that was a marvellous experience to play in a sort of a regular once a week TV program. 1963, Louis Armstrong came back to Sydney, and Graham's band, we went out onto the tarmac to play the band in. So in those days, when you got off a plane, you walked from the plane across the tarmac to the terminal building, and we set up in the middle there and we started playing. And Louis came out and got his horn out and came over and joined us. And I got pictures of it. And John Pearce, I think it was John Pearce from 2GB, was there with a reporter and a tape recorder. So he recorded it. So I got some stuff of me and Louis playing together. I think it was the Beale Street Blues or something. And later, during the concerts that we went to later after, Graham and I went backstage a few times to talk to Louis. One night we're sitting, before I say that, prior to that, Graham used to say, "Now you should get out there and sing a song." And I said, I can't sing, He said, "Well, someone's got to sing, Well, I can't do it. He said, "Well, you should do it." Anyway, we went backstage one day and we were just chatting with Louis Armstrong. And out of the blue, he looked up and he said, "You should sing." Well, Graham went, "Wow, gotcha." So, of course, after that, I tried to sing. I'm no singer, but once in a while it's necessary for someone to pollute the air. So, also around that time, Graham secured a gig for us at the Chevron Hilton Hotel, which I don't know what it's called now, but it was at King's Cross in Potts Point, and it was the hotel in Sydney. And we had a 2-year contract playing in, I can't even remember the name of the place now, but it was 10 shillings. No, it was let me think now, I think it was 7:30 till, I've forgotten now. But when it got to 10 o'clock, the licensing law said you had to eat something if you wanted to stay on after 10 o'clock. And it was 10 shillings to a smorgasbord. Half the people left, of course. But even if you stayed on, you didn't have to eat anything. You had to pay, just to pay the money. So that was the licensing laws at the time. The band was Graham Spedding, Ken Heron, Graham Bell on the piano, There was Harry Harmon, Laurie Thompson, and I was on the trumpet. And we were there for 2 years. Fabulous, fabulous time. And every night we did a floor show, which we'd, it was a half-hour special floor show we'd put on. One night, one week, it'd be the 20s show, and we got striped blazers and hats. And we learned how to do a little soft shoe shuffle, some of us. And we did the Poet and Peasant Overture. Tony was there as a young boy, and the Poet and Peasant, we had a phone that squirted water, an exploding bomb, and custard tarts, and Tony got one night. He was they were fun days. But one night, there was a group of about, 8 or 10 people sitting at a table, and there was a woman over there that I knew, and I thought, I'll go and say hello, and she's smiling, and all the people in the table are smiling, and she said, have you still got the trumpet that Louis Armstrong gave you? Well, Louis never gave me a trumpet. And I'm thinking, wow, what am I going to do? I said, well, of course I have, but that's not it there. I keep the trumpet locked away, and all the people are smiling, and it was, told a little fib, but it didn't make the girl lose face, so to speak. So after that, we were on the road for about a year with Graham Band doing one-nighters, and that was actually a lot of fun because we were all young guys. And then we got a job at the Surfers Paradise Beer Garden. In the old days, it was 60 cents admission, and we got, like half of that or something. That was our wages. We were there for about 8 months. We did 2 shows a day, 12 o'clock till 2:30, and then 7:30 till 10:30. That's a lot. We never really made any money out of that, but it was fun to be in Surfers for that long, but that's enough, if you know what I mean. So after that gig finished, 1967, I went to Sydney and I got a job. Laurie Bennett got me a job at the Phillip Street Theatre, and Gloria Dawn was the star. And I was in the pit band, and we played some show that ran 6 or 7 weeks, but not too long. But that was my first experience in a pit too, thanks to Laurie Bennett. So, okay, after that, I was lucky enough to join Enzo Topano's band. You all know Enzo? He was very famous. A piano player and television star. And he had the band at the Menzies Hotel, 6 nights, 3 saxophones, a trumpet, 3 rhythm, and a lot of nice Shorty Rogers arrangements. And it was a really nice band. And in those days, 6 nights a week was considered to be, you're very lucky to get a 6-night-a-week gig. It was one of the prime gigs in Sydney at the Menzies Hotel, especially with Enzo. So, but my reading wasn't all that good when I started. I'd be playing away. And we did a lot of those, as I said, Shorty Rogers charts, and they're little tricky things. And you make a little mistake, and you can see the glasses, Enzo, the flash of the glasses, the Italian hot eyes going. So I used to take the parts home the next day and practice all day long to learn it. Anyway, that was good. That lasted a year. But during that time, the Menzies Hotel used to put on what they call mini musicals, which were things such as Annie Get Your Gun and Oklahoma and things like that. And the band, as it was, what did I say it was? Anyway, 7 or 8 piece. They'd add another trumpet, another trombone, 3 fiddles and a guitar, and we'd have this quite a large orchestra. And did these mini musicals, which I really enjoyed. It was the first time I'd done anything like that, and it was very satisfying, and I was happy that I did it, and I wouldn't mind doing it again. About 1968, I started doing session work in the studios with jingles and, film music, backing vocalist and all that stuff. And that was good for me because, you know, when I'd walk into the studio, all the musicians look in and they'd say, "What's he doing here?" You know, because I was a Dixieland jazz player, and they was, "What's he doing here?" So anyway, finally I used to make fun of it, you know. In later years, I'd get to a session and turn around and say to the drummer, "Where's your wood block? Where's the cowbell?" You know. Anyway, and around that time, I landed the job with at Channel 7 with Tommy Tico. Tommy Tico was the conductor, and it was about a, I don't know, 12, 14-piece band. Alan Nash was playing lead, my hero. And the shows at that time, one was Tommy Leonetti show, the Bob Rogers show, and yeah, I was just a mere third trumpet player, but here I am in the television studios. Later, I was with Jack Grimsley at Channel 10, and we did the Bobby Lim Red Garter, the Joe Martin show, and some ballroom dance program that I just can't remember the name, but it was all those people dressed up in their fancy clothes. And that was fun too. But at the same time, I was at Kingsgrove RSL at the weekends with Ed Gaston and Doug Foskett and Bob McIver, Dennis Sutherland. That was a fun job too. How am I getting mixed up? 1971. I toured with Ray Price. We went all over the Western Australian mining camps. Col Nolan was in the band, and we played at a place called Ewandamoo, which was somewhat kind of an Aboriginal, was it settlement? I'm not sure it was a settlement or what, but it was all Aboriginals there, and it was marvellous. You know, they looked like cowboys. They had cowboy boots and Stetson hats, and all trying to look like Robert Tatawali. And Port Hadland, Parabadoo, Mount Tompies, we did a hell of a lot of stuff with Ray, and that was fun, way out back. 1950s, I'll get my dates right here. So I guess I just travelled along for a while. In 1974, I joined Bob Gibson's band. I was in Gibbo's band for 2 years. He had the band at Eastern Suburbs Leagues Club, and it was about a 12-piece band. And Eastern Suburbs Leagues Club was great because I lived in Bondi, you know, it was just a couple of miles away. In that band was John Blevins, Locker Bamford, Johnny Bamford, Stan Wilson, Reg Robinson. And that was fun days too. 2 years with Gibbo, we made a record, and they were good years. Same year, I got a job at the Rocks Push, and I formed my own band. And I got Chris Chappell and Wally Wickham, Alan Geddes, John McCarthy and John Costello, and we played there for 14 years at the Rocks Push. Long gone now, it's called the, I don't know what it's called now. It's at the Rock Pool or something like that, pretty high class. Anyway, we were there for a long time, had a lot of fun. God, we had a lot of fun. So, 1976, we did a tour of the USA with my band. That was Cozzy, McCarthy, Chaparral, Wickham. Laurie Thompson was the drummer by then. And we went to the USA for 6 weeks. And, you know, that band was something else, you know. We really killed them everywhere we went. They were good players. We had a good repertoire. And, I don't know, had some sort of a charisma. You know, none of us were showbiz people, you know. There was no one that was really outgoing. But, you know, the way Johnny McCarthy held the clarinet or something, I've forgotten how. And Cozzy was on stage smiling all the time. And So there was something there that the people liked, and that's important, I think, when you have a band, is to have charisma. So anyway, we went back to this. We went to the big Beiderbecke Jazz Festival, and we just stopped the show on the Saturday night. We stopped the show, and the crowd went crazy. And the compere come on, he's saying, "That's it, no encores. There's the policy of no encores, you know." And the crowd wouldn't stop, and we were in the wings, you know, starting to get embarrassed. And the next band that was on there trying to set up their stuff and waiting, trying to get on. Can you imagine how they must have felt, you know? Anyway, they wouldn't allow any encores. Anyway, we went back there to the big Beiderbecke Festival. That was 1976. We did 1978 and 1982. But that first time we went, we did it. We got a big write-up in Variety magazine, you know, the big showbiz magazine. We got a big write-up in that, big, terrific. Never forget all that. We also had a different repertoire than most American jazz bands. You know, they all played the war horses, and we didn't do that. We played other things that we like to play. All right, so let's see, how am I going? 1977, the band got the Queen Elizabeth Medal, the Jubilee Medal, and we did a tour of the military bases in New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, and blah, blah, blah. We went to Singapore and Penang, quite a long tour. It was about 3 weeks, I think. In the same year, we did a tour of Southeast Asia for the Department of Foreign Affairs. We did Indonesia, India, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Iran. We went to Tehran. Do you believe that? We played about 4 or 5 nights in Tehran. Terrific. I went to a Persian market. Next year we toured USA and Canada, the big Beiderbecke Festival again. 1978 I'm talking, I can't remember. Got to get the dates right here. Yeah. I was crowned the King of Jazz at the Myer Music Bowl in Melbourne, and the person who crowned me was Georgia Lee. I don't suppose anyone remembers her. She was like a Torres Strait Island blues singer, pretty good too. And the band, you know, my band at that time was a really good band. As I said, we had a certain amount of charisma. From what I don't know, it was just the way we were. But we had a way of presenting music, you know, in the middle kind of a road. We never played anything we didn't want to play. It was always something we liked. But sometimes it was something that people liked too. So it was a happy medium, you know. That made it successful too. Now, Craig has mentioned, did you mention Tugan? Maybe I'll turn that one over for the moment. Then about that time, every Friday night, I flew to Brisbane to do concerts at the Melbourne Hotel. With Ken Heron was the band lead. Ken Heron lived up in Brisbane then. He moved from Sydney, became a manager of the hotel. And when I used to go Friday nights to Brisbane, I was getting $100 a night, which was pretty good money. And the air ticket was $100. 3 years later, I'm still doing it for $100, and the air ticket's $300. Work that out. But during that time, we had the ABC gave us a TV show, and the compares were Graham Bell, Ken Heron and me. And it ran for about, I don't know, quite a long time, with all the guest artists from everywhere. I remember Ron Folsom was on it, and Don Burrows was on it. A lot of people, you know, there's some people from Tasmania. You know, it was good. In 1980, my band was going to Edinburgh for the Edinburgh Festival, and the government sent us to Belgrade on our way. Because we paid our own tickets, they picked us up and sent us on the side trips, which is pretty good. We got to Belgrade and we went for the UNESCO conferences. And Belgrade, I saw some Aboriginal dancers, you know, with paint and didgeridoos and, you know, all their gear and doing dances. And I'd never seen in Australia, you know. I'm in Yugoslavia and there's the Aboriginal guys doing it. I thought, that's crazy. Oh, we did Zagreb and Warsaw. Cleon Dennis from the ABC called me up to do a string album, 16 violins, 4 cellos, 24 rhythm, 24 tracks. It was one of the highlights of my career. A beautiful album it is. Then on the way to Edinburgh, another year, we stopped off in New York and we recorded an album with Ralph Sutton called Partners in Crime. That was with Len on the drums, Ralph Sutton on the piano. Milt Hinton was the bass player and me. Fabulous record, still is. 1983, Barry Humphries called up. He's doing a new album and he needed us for a couple of tracks. And he had a song that Les Patterson was going to sing. Now Les, we went to the studio with Barry and he put the teeth in to sing this song, spitting everywhere. It was quite hilarious. And I said to him, you know, in Australia, if someone comes to Australia and starts putting down the Australians, everyone gets pretty angry. And I said, how come you can do it in England and no one says anything to you? He said, I tell them it's for their own good. 1984, we went to the World Expo in New Orleans, which was a real flop. But there was a gospel group. We were on a stage playing, and we finished our set, and the stage turned around, and the next group was, you know, behind us, and they went on. It was a gospel group, and bam! Wow! It knocked us all flat. I couldn't believe it was so damn good. And that was the highlight of the World Expo in New Orleans. 1985, I became a solo player. I went to the Kobe Street Jazz Festival. I went with Chris Chappell and we picked up some various players. And during that time, Chris was in Kobe. We were staying with a friend of ours, Pat Donahue, and his wife, Motoko. And Pat had a grand piano, and Ralph Sutton had stayed there and recorded something. He had some kind of a recording machine in the grand piano, and Ralph would play, and he recorded it. So one night, we were standing in the balcony in Chris Chappell's house, smoking a cigarette, and Motoko, Pat's wife, sat down and started to play. And Chris was saying, it's Ralph Sutton playing, you know, it looks like her. He said, don't look, she'll get nervous and stop playing. And it's so good, and he's don't look. Anyway, she got up and walked away from the piano and it kept playing, you know. But he was convinced. He said, what am I doing here? You know. About 1986, I started doing the Ronnie Scott Club. Ronnie liked me, and all I had to do was call up and say, I'll be in London on such and such a time. And he said, okay, book yourself in for the week. So I did that about 8 times with Ronnie Scott. Tony did it with me, how many times, Tony? 3, 6. Anyway, that was a big thrill. Ronnie Scott's Club, we played the support act, 10 till 11 and then 12 till 1. But that was a good thing to do. Then I started doing other solo things. I went to the Jazz Summit in the Colorado Mountains. I met all the great players, Dick Hyman, Warren Boucher, Bob Wilbur, Milt Hinton, Kenny DeVerne, Bob Haggard. And I finally ended up visiting America every year, sometimes twice a year, for about 20 years. I went to jazz parties in Denver, Aspen, and a little place called Chautauqua. I'll spell it, Chautauqua. Fantastic. It was one of my favourite jazz parties. I was there last year, in fact. And I went to Edinburgh after that probably about 10 or 12 times to the Edinburgh Festival. Then I started to go to Helsinki, and I went there 7 or 8 times. One night, we were doing like a Tuesday night or something, and we took a break, and I look up in the bandstand, there's about 8 guys on the bandstand. I said to the piano player, "What's happening?" It's a 5-piece band. Who are those? He said, "Oh, it's tonight's sit-in night." Oh. So, okay, there's a couple of saxophone players and a trombone player and whatever. And they're saying, "Well, what shall we play?" And finally someone said, "How about Don't Get Around Much Anymore?" So that was agreed on. And then the 2 saxophone players, I heard one say, "Hey, what we play?" And the other guy said, "Not much getting around." And the other guy says, "Oh, okay." And I travelled Norway, Sweden, Poland, Yugoslavia, Hungary, everywhere, Belgium. In 1989, I think, there's a Japanese saxophone player called Sadao Watanabe. You heard of him? And I got invited to play golf with him in Cairns. I don't know why me. I didn't have to play, I didn't take my horn or anything. But they invited me and Danielle. We went there and stayed 5 nights at the Hilton Hotel. Didn't pay for anything. We signed for everything. Played 1 day of golf. And they gave me a TV set and all sorts of presents like Japanese people do. So in 1990, I was awarded the Order of Australia at AM. And I forgot to look up Loretta. You know his name, don't you? Can't hear. Well, okay, doesn't matter. Oh, David Martin. And he said, "This is for taking Australian jazz to Poland. Anyone can do that, deserves a medal." So, 1991, the Jazz Critics Award on the Gold Coast. I don't know what that was, but a little statue looked like Bernie McGann. So I was in New York and I called into the local musicians union, and I knew that the president had played the trumpet on some early Bob Wilbur records. He did some King Oliver takeoffs, and his name was Johnny Glassell, and he was the president of the union. So I called in and I said, "I bring greetings from Alan Nash, who was the president of our union." And we chatted, and I said, "How did you join the union?" He said, "Just give me the money." I gave him $200. I became a member of the local 802 in New York, and I kept that up for about 10 years. Because I used to travel to the USA and play without a visa. So I thought if I had at least a union card, that might get me out of trouble. 1992, I had bowel cancer, operated on for bowel cancer. 3 months I couldn't play at all. And, well, that was 3 months just wasted. I also got the second Jazz Critics Award. Around this time, we went to New York, and we went to Louis Armstrong's house. They were just setting it up as they had an archive, and then they set up Louis' house as a kind of a museum. We went there, and I got to play on one of Louis Armstrong's trumpets, which was great fun. I got some photos of that too. In 1993, I did a tour of England with Peanuts Hucko, the famous American clarinet player. Wonderful player. He's in the, trying to think of, okay, he was in not Artie Shaw's band, it was Glenn Miller's band during the war and all that stuff. And a little after that, no, a little before that, I was in Germany, and this guy, Uwe, who was a trumpet player, and I stayed with him. And he said, "Well, where are you going next, Bob?" I said, "Well, I'm going off to to England to do a tour for Peanuts." He says, "Bob," he said, "you should not ever work for Peanuts." I said, no, wait on, peanuts, okay. And then same year, I got a Mo Award, Performer of the Year. And then we opened the Empire Theatre in Toowoomba, and I had to do a very special night. Tommy Tico was conducting the Queensland Symphony, and they wanted me to do a number with them. So I took one of the charts I had from the string album. I took Skylark, and it was written for like 25, and Tommy Tico enlarged the arrangement to fit, whatever the size of the orchestra was, like 80 or 90 piece orchestra. So that was fantastic. Armchair ride. I'm sitting out there with this great, huge symphony orchestra, you can imagine. Wonderful. Highlight. 1955, a big tour of Europe, and then Danielle and I, that's Danielle over there, that's my wife, and we rented an apartment in New York and stayed for, quite a while, like 4 or 5 months. And I did a gig at the World Trade Center with Kenny DeVerne. And the World Trade Center, it was on the top floor, and it was wall-to-wall glass. You stand here and you look down, and it's like being on an aeroplane. It's huge. Anyway, that's gone now. 1997, I got another Mo Award, for performer, Jazz Performer of the Year. 1999, bowel cancer again. Oh, jeez. But I'm still here. The first one was nearly 20 years ago. In 1999, a guy in Melbourne called John Trudinger started a jazz party. It was called the Bob Barnard Jazz Party, which was a marvellous thing. It was a weekend, 3 days in one place, and he'd invite usually some international star to join all the local guys. And, well, as I said, it ran for 10 years, and he said, that's enough, I can't do it anymore. In 2001, Daniel and I were in Florida visiting a fellow cornet player, Tom Pletcher. And in the morning, we were watching the TV, and it was 9/11. And there's this, you can see, you remember 9/11, all those horrible scenes. Well, we were watching it as it was happening in Florida. Dreadful stuff. So, of course, they stopped all the flights, and we were lucky enough to get off our bum and go and rent a car. We had to be in Buffalo the next day. And can you imagine, there's Florida here and there's Buffalo right up on the Canadian border. Well, we managed to get a car, and we drove like hell. At one stage, Danielle was driving. There was semi-trailers on either side, and in front we were boxed in, and we had the idea that they did it purposely. So we finally got off that. And that was some experience. And lots more trips to Europe and the USA. I'm not doing so many anymore. I'm getting older, and it's not as much fun as it was, and it's becoming a lot harder. And as Craig said, last year I got inducted into the Hall of Fame for the Bell Awards. And we're going to play some music now. Thank you.